I just need the agenda, just the front page. Cynthia. Thank you for safely delivering all of us here this evening to undertake the important work of administering and building a community where all those who live, work, and play in Hilliard are equipped to thrive. Allow us to check our personal biases at the door and work united in centering the humanity and diversity of thought for all those who have found their home in Hilliard. Enlighten us as we learn and grow in service. Amen.
Amen.
Peter?
Here.
President Vermillion?
Here. Council has copies of the March 11th special executive session and regular meeting minutes. Are there any changes? Or correct?
Yes, Destination Hilliard had a very successful event over the weekend, March 23rd, the Bunny Hop. There were seen likely the May publication with a four-page spread.
Planning and Zoning Commission, Emily Cole.
No report.
All right. Public Art. Arts Commission.
Pass.
Thank you. Shade Tree Commission, Andy Teeter.
No report.
And Aging in Place Committee.
Well, the committee just made a presentation to the excellent Hilliard City Council and we presented our village model.
All right, we do have one presentation tonight from Mr. Nick Gill, the Transportation Director for MORPC, and he'll present the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Welcome, Mr. Gill.
Okay. First off, a little bit about MORPC, or Midnight Regional Planning Commissioner MORPC. We're regional council of governments for 15-county region of Central Ohio. More than 85 local governments are members in both rural, suburban, and urban in nature. And we have various focus areas, including transportation, which is what I'm here tonight on, but also in the areas of economic development, planning, and sustainability. We're a great resource for anything related to data and mapping. We have that information for Central Ohio. It's the underpinnings of a lot of the work we do. We also have a residential services program for low-income households in Franklin County. And also, we're always keeping an eye on what's happening at the State House and in Washington, D.C. when it comes to legislation and policies and how that will impact Central Ohio, or how we can help position Central Ohio to advocate on legislation that benefits us. And of course, we're always working to engage with not only local governments, but the general public, the nonprofits, and others throughout our region to get our message out, to help advocate on issues that cross jurisdictional lines and to work together. So, one of the things we do is from our role is looking out into the future, looking out to the year 2050, how our region's growing. And you can see how we've been growing for the 3 decades that I've been working at MORPC through the time, and how we're projected to go out to more of a region of 3.15 million people by the year 2050. This is not something new. It's something that we've been forecasting for a number of years. We updated it about a year ago to sort of reconfirm those projections, bumped them up just a notch from the time we did it 4 years previously. We're on the pace, we're continuing to grow, and we don't see that changing at all. That's the population. I got to figure out what way to go with this thing. So that's 700,000 more people than we have here today. 270 households, more than 350,000 more jobs in the future than we have here today. And the next step we go is then, where is that growth occurring? It's occurring throughout the region. We aren't really hemmed in by any big lakes or large rivers, so we grow in all directions. So it's the central city of Columbus is growing. The various suburbs like Hilliard is growing and will be forecast to continue to grow. Even the more rural parts of the region and counties that surrounding Franklin County has continued to grow. And that's what we've seen. What you see in front of you right now is sort of on the left is where the growth is going to be occurring there, with the darker colors being the higher growth areas. And then on the right, you see, what will it look like in terms of number of households in the year 2050. Those lighter colors, it's more the rural areas, and then you get more, suburban densities, and then, the high density areas around the region as well, focused in the Franklin County area. And then when it comes to jobs, it's the same thing. Where are the jobs occurring? Where are they forecast to go? And where's the most dense employment areas going to be as we look out to the year 2050? Shoot. Sorry. So why am I here today? I'm here to talk about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Thank you. No, yeah, sure, if you don't mind. We don't have to worry about the roller thing anymore. So Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that's the #1 product as MORPC produces as part of our metropolitan planning organization responsibilities. We're federally designated. All urban areas over 50,000 throughout the country have organizations like us to do this transportation planning, to look at what is the vision for the transportation system region, to coordinate that vision and that strategy for transportation mobility needs. Looking out 20 years, it is fiscally constrained. It's not just a wish list of everything we'd like to do. It has to be constrained by how many resources we expect to have come into the region throughout. That's both federal resources, state resources, and local resources to implement our transportation needs. It's a process that's continuous. We go through this process every 4 years to update it. I believe I was here 4 years ago and gave the MTP update at that time to City Council to get an idea of what was looking at that time. So here back again, it's continuous. It's usually about a 2-year process. Thank you. So why do we update it? Why is it important? You saw the growth. And demographics are changing. You encounter that probably every meeting on things that are changing about us, our demographics, our age. The needs of the residents of our region are changing. It's different today than it was 30 years ago when I first started at MORPC in this transportation planning area. When there's a lot of resources out there. I mentioned federal transportation dollars. A project needs to be in the MTP to be eligible for federal dollars, and that's not just formula dollars that flow through ODOT or flow through us with all the discretionary opportunities that are there because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Those projects need to be on there, and congressional directed spending that's now back. Projects need to be on the MTP to become for that, and really it guides the work of not only us but all of our regional local partners to develop the transportation system we need. First step, and was going through this, and we did this process about a year and a half ago, is develop the goals for the MTP. The goals around how transportation can help advance these goals, how transportation can help create sustainable neighborhoods, how it can help increase collaboration throughout the region and maximize the return on our transportation investments, how we can continue and position Central Ohio to be an economic engine for the state and to help prosper all throughout all parts of the region. We want to make sure we're providing mobility options that benefit everyone in all of our residents, and it's a safe transportation system. And then as we're implementing transportation, how are we doing that in such a way that protects our natural resources and reduces our energy consumption? So where do we start? We don't start with it in our offices. We actually start by looking at what all the local communities have already identified. What do you have in your local comprehensive plans? What do you have in your thoroughfare plans? What do you have identified through other special studies and activities of the needs for your region? That's for transportation, but even the land use and population and employment forecast maps that I showed earlier, where that's going to occur. That's really built upon what you have, where you see your community growing, and where do you see your households, new households being built, maybe more density in certain areas, where your employment, what type of employment. That all really comes and starts with reviewing all the local activities. We bring that together, we do those projections, we do our own analysis of, okay, what's all that mean in terms of transportation, in terms of traffic congestion, so forth. So, what's that mean for trip making in the future, and what are the needs that we have for the transportation system? We bring that together. That's where we get to these regional strategies and projects that's all included into the MTP. So it starts with strategies. We have 2 buckets of strategies here. is the system management strategies is really to maintain what we have, make sure our roads and bridges and our sidewalks and our paths and our transit system is in a good physical state. And then using technology and other means, make sure we can operate it as efficiently as possible, to make them the smallest footprint as possible and manage the way we have that we need to move traffic and have that mobility needs throughout the region. How can we reduce demand, particularly in some of those peak hours, of vehicle congestion and make those a little less congested. And then also, always at the forefront is safety. Making sure our system is safe, and especially for the most vulnerable users, and especially with regard to minimizing and hopefully eliminating, fatal and serious injury crashes. But we are a growing area, and we realize there are gaps in our transportation system. So we do need to continue to expand our transportation system and across all modes. There's gaps in our bike and pedestrian system. When I started in this world of transportation planning, 30 years ago, there wasn't the emphasis on sidewalks everywhere and complete streets like there is now. So there's lots of legacy roads out there that's pretty interconnected, but not all of our bike and pedestrian system is. So filling in those gaps is a key part of those additional projects and strategies in our MTP. Transit. We have bus transit service now, but it can be more robust. So expanding the transit system. Adding more service hours, adding different types of transit through our region is a part of the system development strategies. Freight and logistics is an important part of our region's economic growth and aspects. So what are bottlenecks in that system that we can help and eliminate? And then roadways, multimodal connections. Roadways are still the backbone of the transportation system to move not only around the region, but connecting our region to the rest of the state and the country. So there will continue to be roadway needs, new road connections, intersection improvements, adding turn lanes, adding widening lanes to address not only some bottlenecks that exist today, but also in helping to, alleviate and account for those growth in population, employment, and mobility needs moving over the next 25 years. So where we are today, we're in the process of, we developed the draft transportation plan. More than $35 billion of projects and strategies to first maintain what we have, that lower right corner of the bar chart. More than a quarter of it is to just maintain what we have. Resurface roads, replace bridges, rebuild sidewalks. So just maintain what we have and make it operate as efficiently as possible. The biggest chunk there you see is the transit. This MTP has the largest amount dedicated to transit in any of the MTPs I've worked on. That's maintaining the current system, but that's expanding it, the current transit system. And I'll touch on that in a bit more in next slides. But then there's a variety of things from surface streets, widenings, to some freeways, interchanges. This is also probably the largest, or should I say, forecast of standalone bike and pedestrian projects, almost $2 billion worth of those to help, as I mentioned, fill in those gaps when those weren't put in, when roads were put in initially. So transit. One aspect of transit is bus rapid transit corridors. Along those three areas of the Link Us initiative, West Broad, East Main, and Northwest Corridor. Hopefully you've heard about and are moving through that process. But and that $12 billion is, we think there could be at least five corridors built by the year 2050 in our fiscally constrained forecast. So we're looking at what are the next corridors. Did a process and looking at studies and some analysis based on those goals, and we think a next corridor to start the process on is from downtown to the airport to Easton and beyond, and then a corridor to the south. Those first three corridors I mentioned, West Broad, East Main, and Northwest, they started through a planning process in earnest about 3 years ago. And that's where we want these next couple corridors, to start a planning process now to get them in the pipeline moving forward to be those corridors 4 and 5. But there's other corridors, there's other transit needs. ODOT did a workforce transit study focused on the Pataskala, Etna, and New Albany area in western Licking County, identified some recommendations to move forward. Want to continue to study those and advance those even further, hopefully in the projects, but at least starting to study on those. As well, there may be other corridors throughout the region, stretching, into this area, going up north of corridors to continue to study, see what needed. Is it all the way to bus rapid transit, or is it something that's, really enhanced service, but not quite there? And not to mention, how does it integrate with intercity passenger rail? We're in the process of starting that. And what you don't see here is, you see these fixed corridors, but there's also just in general 45% more service that's projected in the transportation plan. That's more geographic coverage. That's more hours of COTA running starting earlier in the morning, running longer in the evening. Maybe some routes are 24-hour routes. And it's also increased hours of service is about, making 1 hour, trips, routes that run only, every hour, maybe they're every 30 minutes, maybe 20-minute routes become every 15 minutes. So things like that, it helps us increase that hours of service. So zooming specifically back to the projects and specifically to the Hilliard area, what we see emphasized here for the Hilliard area is completing some of those gaps. They're making those improvements in the bike and pedestrian system, more so than the roadway system. Some isolated intersections there, but it's a lot of filling in those gaps and adding, pieces to the bike and pedestrian network. Thank you. So where we've been, we update every 4 years. We've been at it really in earnest for the last 2, where we updated those, went through this, and identifying all those projects. We had an interactive map that we put up after we called all the projects from all the local activities and studies and from ODOT and so forth, and had people comment on and provide more comments, and went through a strategy and evaluation process to lead where we are now. Next slide, please. Back to, I just want to touch on Linkus one more time before I wrap up here. I mentioned there's the BRT corridors. There is expanded bus service as part of that. But another aspect that is this transit supportive infrastructure is providing ways to get to transit and not having transit stops with just in a grass median, ensuring that there's appropriate facilities, sidewalks, bike paths that lead you to there, that transit isn't just the vehicles, the transit itself, but it's not as viable unless you can actually safely get to it from there, because if you're riding transit at the beginning and the end of your trip, it's going to be either walking or biking, so for the most part. And so we want to make sure you can actually get it and use it as well. So to wrap up here, we're in the process. We have a draft plan out on our website. We have an interactive map for the projects. We've been going through city councils, township trustee meetings, county commissioners, and Columbus. We've been going through their neighborhood association meetings to give them information on where we are in the process. We have a comment period that'll be through the end of this month. We'll be incorporating that, and then MORPC will be adopting the final MTP in May. With that, that concludes my presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gill, for your presentation. It's nice to see that things are expanding in the area of public transit, and as well as trails. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Mr. Gill, I was here at the last presentation. Hold on, I better get green or I'll get in trouble. And one of the things I noticed on one of these maps was Hilliard is we got a little brown kind of, I guess what you'd call a cone.
Oh, from the transit map?
Yeah.
It's
where you're just going to study us for a corridor. And that goes into my other question. You've got $12 billion. How much of it's coming to Hilliard, dollar-wise? Do you have any idea?
Well, that $12 billion transit is really what the transit agencies will spend. So that's, COTA has an interconnected bus system, and that expanded bus service, will likely be more service hours, more coverage, and things that would include Hilliard. That cone of study, we For what we can reasonably expect to be in the region, that would include increased local support for transit, is 5 corridors, and say 5 corridors minimum, because those will be starting, but that doesn't mean that's the end of the story. Those are the first 5 corridors. And as we start studying additional corridors, it won't be me, but when somebody comes back here again in 4 years to give you the update on the next transportation plan, hopefully it's actually going to be more than that, and there'll be a corridor that's under construction at that time, and there'll be additional corridors that are further along in development. We'll be ready to identify, what'll be next, and it'll just be keep growing. But the hardest part is for this bus rapid transit, high capacity rapid transit, is getting started, and we got to get that initial start, and allow it to prove what it's worth and prove how it'll change and how it'll work and how it'll be really a benefit to the region. So it's hard to answer how much is coming to Hilliard when we're talking about the transit, because it's all CODA system, it's all that interconnectivity. But it is
It's different agencies. It's CODA, it's you, it's Metro Parks, it's all the different agencies that you're talking about, those investment dollars.
Yeah, the whole $35 billion. Yeah, that's all agencies.
Including ODOT?
Yes.
And do you have a map that shows where the investment dollars are going? I would just be curious, because, to be honest with you, I've always thought Hilliard was on the short end. A lot of it was going to other communities. You see a lot of money flow to Dublin. You see a lot of it go to Grove City. When you see your corridors, you see them as transportation corridors go to the south and to the north, and we kind of are in the middle, and we don't get we're just being studied. Mm-hmm. And so I sit here and advocate and say to you that I'd like to understand the dollars and where they're going, because that speaks volumes as to who's getting what resources. And I guess I would.
Are you referring to the bus transit item or just transportation in general?
Transportation in general, whether it's the sidewalks or whether it's, all those pieces. But when you looked at it, we were just a study corridor, and other corridors would look like tremendous amount of more resources.
That was the bus transit that he showed the corridors for. Right. We have been the recipient of significant dollars, federal dollars that come through the MORPC process. So recently the pedestrian overpass over I-270, it's $11.5 million because of 2 federal grants that we received for that. I think our total cost on that will be 1.4 of that 11 point. Those federal grants came through MORPC.
Yes. Part of that is the money that MORPC controls. Now, this plan, what I'm presenting, this is the region. This isn't.
So it's bigger than just MORPC.
Yes. Okay. I mean, that $35 billion, MORPC, the amount of money that MORPC actually controls and makes a decision, has an application process every 2 years, is $50 million a year, just under $50 million a year. So it's not this whole that $35 billion. That's why this is the region's plan. This is the amount of resources coming through the region, whether it's through ODOT to maintain their system, to expand their system, whether it's monies that you'll get through, some region can get through discretionary federal grants, or state Ohio Public Works Commission dollars. We try to forecast that and make this a complete picture of that. Not to mention your own local dollars that you put towards transportation projects. We want this is as comprehensive as we can of what everything is, and part of this is it's a collaboration tool as well to understand what your neighbors are doing and making sure if you have projects you're working on and make sure those and being aware of what's going on and making sure we can collaborate. And like I said, this is part of our main existence is to work on issues that cross jurisdictional boundaries, of which transportation is obviously one of those.
And then the other question I have for you is there anything we can do to help you, to help us get that connection, that pathway connection on the old rail line all the way down to Upper Arlington?
We are working on it. I mean, no, that's on our plan. I think we, one of the things we do can help you navigate, help you find funding sources, especially with the amount of discretionary opportunities out there now. That's a lot different than it was 3 years ago. There's always opportunities, and I know we're different staff have working on that, and we'll continue to try to make that happen.
Thank you for coming and putting up with me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gill.
Thank you.
Are there any changes to the agenda? No? Okay. Now we move into the public portion of the meeting. We don't normally get this many people, so I apologize to those of you who are standing, since we don't have enough chairs out for you. I have several people signed up to speak. So when I call you up, please state your name and the city in which you reside. And you have 3 minutes to speak. We have a number of you who have signed up. So I will ask that you stop at 3 minutes. The clock is right there, so as you can see, it's getting very close to 3 minutes. Please wind your comments down. All right, we will call up Mo Musetif.
Hello, thank you guys for allowing us to speak today. My name is Mo Musetif. I reside from Hilliard, I'm a Hilliard native, and a family business established here in Hilliard as well. We're here to highlight on a couple of sensitive topics that we're needing to address, hopefully shedding some light. Elephant in the room, occupation, illegal occupation that's happening right now in our homeland, back home in Palestine. Israel has occupied Palestinian territories, including the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem since the Six-Day War in 1967, leading to ongoing tensions and conflicts. Israel's establishment and the expansion of settlements in the occupied territories are considered illegal under international law and are a major point of contention, leading to displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and encroachment on their land. Palestinians in the occupied territories face restrictions of movement, access to resources, and frequent military checkpoints impacting their daily lives and economic opportunities. Israel imposes a blockade on the Gaza Strip, severely restricting the movement of people and goods, leading to a humanitarian crisis, including shortages of essential supplies like food, medicine, and clean water, which is affecting several families that we see on social media on a day-to-day basis. Home demolitions. Israeli authorities frequently demolish Palestinian homes, citing reasons such as lack of permits, which are difficult for Palestinians to obtain. This practice results in displacement and loss of property for Palestinians, of course, leading them nowhere to go. Palestinians living within Israel face systemic discrimination in areas such as housing, employment, education, and access to services compared to Jewish citizens. Palestinians, including civilians and children, often face violence from Israeli military forces and settlers, including shootings, arrests, and demolitions, contributing to a cycle of conflict and insecurity. These points right here that I just listed are some of the ways in which Palestinians are adversely affected by Israeli policies and actions in the ongoing conflict. We're here just, again, to shed some light and hopefully raise some awareness. If you guys have not yet noticed or seen anything, a lot of our families, immediate families, have been affected. I lost a few cousins. I've lost a lot of relatives who are being mistreated poorly for no reason, just for the difference and just because they're Palestinian. So thank you guys again for your time, and hopefully it brings some attention to your guys' mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jawad Defala.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm not Jawad.
I saw.
Yeah. My name is Mazen Rasool. Unfortunately, Jawad and probably a couple others on your list could not make it due to fasting. As you know, it's time to eat right now in a few minutes, so they couldn't make it. So my name is Mazen Rasool. I'm an attorney. I live in Hilliard. I work in Columbus. I actually just drove from Columbus City Council, and that's why I chose to give you an update that Columbus City Council today, as well as Cleveland City Council, passed ceasefire resolutions. Now, hold on. Don't get too excited. Both cities still refuse to use the word specifically ceasefire. It's very disturbing that the term ceasefire, a term that's recognized and universally been used all over the world in any situation of armed conflict or any issues, the hesitation to use this term shows the lack of actual bravery, the actual freedom even of our own officials to say what they want to say. The pressure on you to not use this term ceasefire really amazes us. You're elected officials. We elect you to represent us. We elect you to be free to say what you want to say and not be vetoed a single word. Someone could veto it from your use. It's a simple word. The word is ceasefire. As an attorney, when two people are fighting, the first thing we do is we go get an injunction or a restraining order or a protection order. That's what it is. That's what ceasefire means. We're not even asking you to become pro-Palestinian, although that's the moral thing to do and the ethical thing to do is to be against an occupation, against an apartheid regime. But even if you don't want to go there, even if you don't want to go there, at least we're asking you to demand a ceasefire to stop a genocide. A genocide is happening in Gaza and in the West Bank. An ethnic cleansing campaign is ongoing. And the least you could do as elected officials is call for a ceasefire and an end to all this fighting. In previous speech, I told you there's no two sides to this issue. There's one side that's an oppressor, and the other one is an occupier. You can't equate between an occupied and an occupier. You cannot equate between an oppressor and an oppressed. You cannot equate between them. There's one side only that's actually killing thousands of civilians. Over 40,000 Palestinians have been killed, not including those under the rubble. And over 70,000 have been injured. And injuries mean losing limbs, losing parts of their bodies. And the only thing we're asking you for is to call for a ceasefire and end this all. So I hope you have the courage, as you start every meeting by singing the land of the free and the home of the brave. I hope you actually understand the meaning of these words and that we are actually uphold these words and this standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Afnan Islam? No? Oh, okay. Rayan Asghar?
Good evening. My name is Rayan. I'm a Palestinian American and an Ohio State student. I'm also a lifelong Hilliard resident. I even attended K through 12 at Hilliard City Schools. I never realized that it was so controversial for the people in my own community to at the very least acknowledge the murder of newborn babies, children, and innocent civilians in my country. I never realized that my identity as a Palestinian could make my community so deeply uncomfortable. It's interesting because you accepted me when I was playing midfield for your Hilliard lacrosse team or when I was president of my Hilliard graduating class. But now when I'm coming to you as a Palestinian member of this community and I'm asking you for help so we can stop the murder of my people, it makes you uncomfortable to do so. And now my plea for your support is too political for you. You're denying me my humanity as well as that of my Palestinian brothers and sisters. Your fellow members of this community are witnessing the daily starvation of innocent people and we are devastated. We feel unsafe because our representatives are actively harming us by finding excuses to deny our requests. And why is that? I believe that many people have been deceived into thinking that the word ceasefire is somehow political when it's nothing more than a plea for humanitarian aid. The word ceasefire makes you uncomfortable. You have the privilege of being uncomfortable by that. You know what's really uncomfortable? Losing everything, your parents, your children, your home, your school, your hospitals, your neighborhood, your entire livelihood wiped away. All we want is to provide them shelter, food, and the opportunity to live, and we're going to deny them that because some people feel uncomfortable with the word ceasefire. You know, I think your fear of being called anti-Semitic is stopping you from doing the right thing. I believe that somewhere along the way, the definitions of anti-Semitism, Judaism, and Zionism have been misconstrued. It seems as though you believe that calling for an end to a genocide fuels anti-Semitism, when actually what fuels anti-Semitism is murdering children by the thousands in the name of Judaism, while adamantly insisting that your actions are inseparable from all Jewish people. Judaism is a religion of 3,000 years, while Zionism is less than 150 years old. Zionism is a transformation to nationalism. It's a colonial settler ideology and a political movement started by people who are non-religious. Zionists use the Star of David in religion, claiming it's a God-given right to steal Palestinian land, even though the most religious Jews around the world have condemned Israel for its genocidal war because it is against the religion of Judaism. There are numerous Jewish organizations that support the resolution for a ceasefire because they understand that this is a humanitarian issue and has absolutely nothing to do with religion. This conflict has never been about religion. That is a clear and disgraceful cover-up to the atrocities committed by the Israeli government. Zionists use the word anti-Semitic as a weapon to shut down any and all criticism of Israel's policies. I pray that this council will not be manipulated by a few influential people who have thrown the word anti-Semitic around. How is it anti-Semitic to criticize the government of a country, a government that has stolen land, starved civilians, and killed tens of thousands with impunity? A member of the International Court of Justice agrees that Israel is not above the law, is not accorded by God the divine right to commit genocide, despite Israel's biblical claims, is not a victim, but is in fact a perpetrator of crimes, can no longer hide behind the claims of anti-Semitism, nor use the Holocaust to commit a Holocaust of its own against another group of people. Israel can, must, and will be held accountable. I'm almost done. Okay.
I'm sorry. I am holding everybody to 3 minutes tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bayan Shalash.
Hello, my name is Bayan Shalash. I am a resident of Hilliard since I was 5 years old. I graduated from Hilliard Bradley High School in 2016, and I'll be graduating from the Ohio State University College of Medicine this May. I come to you today, and I've read all of your bios online, and I think that there's a way that we can connect all of your relative specialties and your ability to make this city a cohesive society with the fact that you should have some relative empathy towards the people of Gaza. I want to take a moment to tell you that as a medical student on the verge of graduation, while I've grieved every life lost in Gaza, I have felt a compelling emotional tie to the stories of Palestinian medical students and physicians whose lives have been lost in Gaza. Dr. Peggy Hale, with your experience as an ER physician, and Miss Emily Cole, with your experience working toward health equity, I think you will relate to this as well. There are countless physicians in Gaza who were forced into the ethical quandary of risking their own lives to stay by their patient's side or to dishonor their profession by leaving for the safety of themselves and their family. Time and again, they chose the former and were killed at the hands of the Israeli Defense Forces. In total, only 1/3 of Gaza's 36 hospitals are currently functional. That's 12 hospitals for 2 million people. It's impossible to fathom that they or any other health system in the world would be able to account for the mass casualty that is occurring in Gaza. On top of this, Israel is blockading medical supplies from entering. And this guarantees an impending collapse of the healthcare system. All people have a right to safe, clean, accessible healthcare, including the people of Gaza. Next, I want to highlight the effects that these attacks on Gaza have had on the school system and Gazan children. Mr. Andy Teeter, you have been recognized as a friend of education and sit on the board of Hilliard City Schools. I believe this is an area that you will relate to as well. There are 13,000 children that have been murdered in Gaza and more that have been left amputees. The psychological and emotional and physical toll that it's taken on our children compounds with the fact that 70% of Gaza's schools have been destroyed. I also want to highlight the mass starvation that is occurring in Gaza. President Vermillion and Vice President Khan, both of you have extensively dedicated your time to feeding the most vulnerable in our community. Right now, northern Gaza is being starved. 16% of children are acutely malnourished. And yesterday, we signed into legislation the pulling of funding from UNRWA, an organization established to guarantee Palestinians food aid due to their refugee status in Gaza. Lastly, Mr. Les Carrier, with your education in legal matters, and Mr. Greg Betts, with your expertise in military affairs, I believe both of you can see the international war crimes that Israel has committed against Gaza's people, from the use of internationally banned white phosphorus bombs to the widespread bombing of homes and civilian sites. There's absolutely no justification for Israel's actions. Quite frankly, all of Gaza's society has been desecrated. We are witnessing a genocide, and it is our obligation to speak up.
Thank you. Kate Coughlin.
My name is Kay Coughlin, and I am from Galena. I identify as a white woman, and I am a Christian. I am here tonight in solidarity with people of good conscience from around the world, of all religions and no religion, to demand a resolution for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. This is only a first step in demanding lasting liberation for Palestinian people who have been living with the Israeli government boot on their necks for 76 years. We must never forget that Palestine, where this genocide is taking place, is the homeland of Jesus Christ, who was himself a brown-skinned refugee who had to flee political persecution as a baby. I'd like to walk backwards through some of the illegal and incredibly painful events of the past 170 days to paint a picture of how dreadful and trauma-causing it has become to live in the apartheid state of Israel, where human rights can simply be denied if you do not have full rights of full citizenship. Yesterday, Christians from the West Bank were denied entry into Jerusalem to worship on Palm Sunday, the day that begins our Holy Week. Over the past several days, at least 2 hospitals in Rafah were attacked by Israeli soldiers. This is illegal under international law. The people who were murdered in these attacks include children, pregnant women, healthcare workers, and an official who was coordinating the delivery of food, aid, and basic necessities to the desperate people of Gaza. Christ would weep over this. About a month ago, children began dying of starvation, of being starved, because the population of Gaza, some 2 million people, are being systematically denied food and water. This too is illegal under international law, and Christ would weep over it. And over the past 170 days, since October 7th, at least 32,000 people in Gaza have been killed by the occupying state of Israel, and 14,000 of these deaths committed by armed forces were children. This is more than the total number of children killed in combat across the world over the past 4 years. Children who cannot be targeted as combatants, because this too is illegal according to international law. And Christ would scream with righteous anger over the violent deaths of these children. I am here tonight because of my faith in the teachings of Christ. I stand with these good people because Christ would not in any way condone murdering children in his own homeland. We demand a permanent ceasefire resolution now. Thank you.
Thank you. Naz Razul.
Left, Peggy, team members, how you guys doing tonight? My name is Naz Rasul. I graduated from Hilliard High School in the Ohio State University. You all heard the emotional speeches already. I'm not here to get one of those. But obviously have not worked. So please tell me what will. I'm standing here on my own 2 feet by the grace of God and the great USA. They gave me that opportunity. I promise, you put me in the desert right now, I wouldn't be standing here. I'm one of the lucky ones. Being disabled in America, we get treated very devalued. But just imagine what the kids in Gaza are going through. No legs, no arms. The backs are broken. And to be honest with you, I don't think you guys can ever relate to what they're going through. I could go on and on. What's the point? You all already know this. And I know that signing this resolution probably won't change nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it'll prove to all of us that you guys have a heart. But let's be real. You guys all have great hearts, just not for this cause. So I'll end with this. I don't know what else it would take to sign this resolution, but I do know we will be here every meeting until you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Pullman.
Hello, my name is Jessica Pullman. I reside in Hilliard, and I've been a nurse at Nationwide Children's Hospital since 2018. My passion has always been to help children, so understandably, the crisis in Palestine has really been getting to me. How are we turning our heads to the innocent lives being murdered? How are we allowing a population to not have adequate health care? As a nurse at a children's level 1 trauma center, how would you expect us to treat and care for children without adequate supplies or without staff? Doctors Without Borders doesn't feel safe there. They're bombing the ambulances in the hospitals. And they're killing Palestinians as they're trying to get food. The famine is heartbreaking as it's literally killing people. So we are asking for a ceasefire. To me, this would show humanity. I know it won't change much as it's obviously not going to cause like a true ceasefire, but it shows support. It shows love for this population, and it shows inclusion. I'm not Palestinian, but I have friends and coworkers that I love that are Palestinian, and I can say with certainty that showing support for a ceasefire would make them proud to live here. It shows support of their people, of their family, and of their culture. A little analogy that I would like to talk about is this. I have like a watermelon badge reel that's for support of Palestine. Buying this, wearing it around work, obviously is not going to stop the genocide, but it does show my fellow coworkers that are Palestinian that I am here for them, I support them, and I love them. So we're asking for you to show support of a ceasefire. We're pleading for this. Show us support, show Palestinian support, show Palestine that they're not alone, and we are here for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Abu Rayyan.
Good evening. I'm a Hilliard resident. My name is Sara Nadi Ismail Ibrahim Muhammad Ibrahim Salman Salama Rayyan Saad Abu Rayyan. Actually, that's only part of my name. I regret not knowing the rest of it by heart. My name is so long because it is a tradition amongst the Palestinian people to identify their ancestors in their name. Sarah is my given name, Sara, in honor of my great-grandmother, born in the village of Halhul 120 years ago. That is 40 years before the creation of Israel. After my given name is my father's name, Nadi. After my father's name is his father's name, then his father's name, and so on. We have a record of this because my great-grandfather, Ibrahim, recorded the names of our ancestors in a family tree drawn meticulously on the inside cover of his Quran. In total, we can trace the paternal line of my family for 14 generations that have lived in Palestine. There is a phrase that was often cited during the creation of Israel, put forth by early Zionists, those who support the ideology of a Jewish state called Israel. They would say that there was, quote, a land without a people for a people without a land. Meaning the Jews who had been living in Europe for centuries were without a home in Europe and would be suited to move to an empty Palestine. But Palestine was not empty. That was a lie. My ancestors lived on that land generations before the Balfour Declaration of 1917, which stated the intent to build a Jewish-only state where Jewish people with non-Semitic ancestry would be encouraged to take any land they wanted. They would subsequently appropriate the cultural practices as their own in an attempt to show themselves as long integrated with their surroundings and to erase Palestinian history. There have long been a people on that land who had religious identities as Muslims, Christians, Jews, and more, and they all identified as Palestinian. Through colonial occupation under the British, through imperial occupation under the Ottoman Turks, and now under the illegal military occupation by Israel, the people whose ancestors have lived on and cultivated that land identify as Palestinian. The Palestinian people have a long history and a strong character, unique from others around them. There are Palestinian arts and Palestinian foods, Palestinian music, and Palestinian dance. These things are not simply Arab or Middle Eastern, and they cannot be lumped into the identities of neighboring peoples. When I hear that it is anti-Semitic to ask for the protection of Palestinian lives and livelihood, it boggles my mind. Semitic people are anybody who has roots where the Semitic languages originated. Did you know that Semitic people are defined by their language and not by their religion? Those whose ancestors lived on and cultivated the land, the ones who have long identified as Palestinian Muslims, Palestinian Christians, and Palestinian Jews, are all Semitic people. So there is Semitic blood in my veins. I honor my shared heritage with my Semitic brothers. I want you to understand that it is not religion that is at the root of any conflict here. We are not asking that one group assume or be denied rights based on religion. Sorry.
Thank you.
It is Israel which is telling us to see Palestinian people as not human and not deserving of basic rights. We've been given excuse after excuse for why more than 31,000 innocent children, women, and men have been killed in Gaza.
I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Aaron Neese.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Erin Neese. I live in the Hilliard School District. I have 4 children. 2 have graduated from Davidson, and I have 2 that are still in Hilliard City Schools. And I'm a preschool teacher here in Hilliard and have been for 9 years. For months, international organizations have been warning the world that Gaza was running out of food, water, and medicine. So for the past few weeks, we've been hearing that famine is imminent, that the most vulnerable have already started dying from starvation and dehydration. And most recently, the UN has reported that about 1/10 of children in the south and about 1/3 of children in the north of Gaza are suffering from acute malnutrition or starving. Every conceivable resource is scarce for the 2 million people trapped in Gaza. Now, last week I got an email update from the Mennonite Central Committee. The Mennonite Central Committee is the relief and development organization supported by Mennonite and Brethren churches, both of which, as historic peace churches, have been steadfast in their commitment to a ceasefire from the beginning and have been outspoken. And this is what the email said. After weeks of unsuccessfully navigating complicated logistics to bring a shipment of food through the Rafah crossing into Gaza through Egypt, MCC was able to connect with a partner in Jordan to bring food supplies through a different crossing instead. Intense restrictions by the Israeli government on supplies going into Gaza meant there have been significant delays at the border. The convoluted and time-intensive inspections have led to a long queue of trucks waiting to cross. Due to seemingly arbitrary decisions by the Israeli authorities, many transport trucks carrying life-saving supplies have been turned away at the crossings, unable to unload their shipments. MCC's shipment of much-needed food packages sat in a warehouse for 3 weeks until it was cleared to enter the long line of trucks waiting to cross into Gaza. And then it went on to say it waited for another week before it actually got in. So the world is lined up, ready to flood Gaza with the things that are needed to save the people who've managed to survive the bombings and are still clinging to life, and yet children are starving to death. And we bear some collective responsibility for this because we're citizens of a democracy and we have the freedom to speak up and say, this is not what we want our tax dollars going to support. And people are saying that. People are declaring that they support ceasefire, churches, organizations, municipalities, cities, etc., because we don't think that we want to support the bombing of hospitals and churches and schools and mosques and refugee camps and starving people on purpose. There's really no more time to waste in prolonged discussion and debate. The situation was catastrophic 3 months ago. People need relief now, and an immediate, permanent ceasefire is the only way we can get that aid to people.
Thank you. Amira Rasul.
Hello, how are you guys today? My name is Amira Rasul, and today I'm coming to this council as a 2023 graduate from Hilliard Davidson High School, as a former Hilliard City employee for 2 summers, and as a long-life resident of the city of Hilliard, and above all, as a proud Palestinian American. I would like to add that the recent resolution that has been passed through the UN Security Council this morning only calls for a 2-week ceasefire, which is the bare minimum that Gaza needs, and the Israeli government has already stated that they will not be abiding by it. You know why I'm here today? I don't think there's anything left for me to say to the destruction, the collective punishment, and the genocide of babies, innocent human beings slaughtered and starved to famine every single day that you haven't already seen with your own eyes, with your fingertips. I'm aware that most of you and most of the people in power in America have been utterly desensitized by our 40,000 Palestinian casualties, by our weeping stories of our families back home that are struggling to survive, and by seeing babies and children dying under rubble with your own eyes. Yet, the one note that strikes a nerve of sensitivity and care is a word: ceasefire, which quite literally is defined as a truce, an order or signal to stop fighting. It baffles me how seeing innocent Palestinian human beings being slaughtered and starved doesn't strike any form of empathy. Yet, a simple word with the definition of peace to end fighting for all sides is somehow discriminate and aggressive. A word over human lives, a possible discrimination over mass slaughter of innocent human beings. And I highlight on the fact of just what ceasefire is as a word, because we all know that even if this council decided to choose their humanity and simply ask for a truce, end the killing of all, still no act of permanent ceasefire would happen. So ultimately, this comes down to the impact of a single word. It comes down to, by saying this word, by requesting this act, you acknowledge the pain and suffering of all your Palestinian residents. You acknowledge the anger of all your residents that have been watching a genocide unfold on their screens with a city that simply stays silent and complicit. And we are not a minority in this city. In fact, the people who stand for a ceasefire in Gaza and the end of all atrocities are the majority. By doing simply nothing but saying a word, acknowledging my pain, my anger, my suffering, you show me that the city where I grew up, where my childhood was cultivated, where my home is, doesn't discriminate or disregard against me and my people, the Palestinian people, the people that have been being murdered in front of your eyes by the hour and seconds as we speak. That you wouldn't be desensitized by me, an 18-year-old Palestinian girl being crushed under the rubble of my home with my family right in front of your eyes on your screens. All I'm requesting is that you act on your humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Schottenstein.
My name is Eric Schottenstein. I reside in Columbus, Ohio. I've been here my whole life. I've been a casual observer to what's going on here in Hilliard. I have been a developer here, had a hand in developing Western Lakes on Roberts Road and all the properties that are in the reserve at Hoffman Farms when I had my company, Joshua Homes. We all say we want peace. And I condemn, personally, I condemn the loss of any innocent life. I want peace too. But there's a quote from Golda Meir that had a hand in the founding of the State of Israel in 1948, and it took till 1969 for her to hold the same position that Netanyahu holds today. That woman was the prime minister of the State of Israel for 5 years. Her quote was, "If Israel put their weapons down in any of the conflicts that they have endured, there'd be no more Israel. But if the Palestinians put down their weapons and their rockets, there would be peace." Columbus is special. If you Google our Jewish population, it will tell you there are 25,000 Jews. I was shocked, actually. I was always told in the last 5 years that it's 18,000, but it's 25. If you Google the Muslim population in Columbus, it says there's over 100,000 Muslims. Just like the Muslims, the Jews want to live in their community. They go to where their synagogues are, where their markets are, where their food is. You don't have a strong representation, although I've been part of Hilliard as a builder my whole life. You don't have that representation. There's clearly an overwhelming majority here. But all of these requests for a ceasefire are absent. I'm sort of shocked that no one's mentioning the fact about the hostages, that no one's mentioning what happened October 7th. No one is even giving a voice to what occurred and all the atrocities that are legitimately being expressed by these residents who have been here are real, except it's war. It's war. And I want to say that I don't think anybody here in this body should be suddenly, in all the Pickerington, Dublin, Hilliard meetings that I attended, I don't remember any international conflict being opined upon because we suddenly see something that has a moral dignity to it. But it's happening here, and I felt that I had to speak up. There was a ceasefire before October 7th. Now it's been absolutely obliterated, and I was taught to be responsible for my actions. This deflection to make this single humanitarian cause and not recognize this as our Hilliard Council trying to sift through a war, I don't think that's your purview. I don't think it's mine. I think it's very hard for people here to understand that.
Thank you.
Moral courage and ethics, that's what has to be evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Biska?
My, he's a tall fella, isn't he? Thank you very much for giving us time tonight. I want to take y'all on a little journey. Let's just go back. I've been here in the Hilliard area for my whole life, 65 years, 30-some here in Hilliard and a few years on the other side of the river. Let's just go back 75 years. Hilliard was, oh, I'm so sorry. She's hot in here. Hilliard was farmland. That was it. Then in 1950, there were 610 residents. Okay, now imagine this farmland as communal farms, not just, a couple of families that have farms. See it as communal farms, families living there. And let's just say these families invited people from all across the state, from all over, to come for a little music festival, okay? They're having a nice time, it's peaceful. On the morning at 6:27 on the morning of October 7th, 2023, 3,000 armed Palestinians from Hamas essentially invaded this farmland. Nobody had weapons. They killed over 1,500 people. They took hostages. Some of those hostages are Holocaust survivors. They're not being kept together in a big group. They're isolated, so they can't even be with their own people. That's what's happening to them. Mr. Schottenstein is right. There was a ceasefire, and that's been broken by Hamas. If y'all don't like your government, it's up to the people of Palestine to remove Hamas. They are the elected government of Palestine. Just because Hamas has not allowed those people to have a free election since then, it's not my problem. It's their problem. Overthrow that government, demand your rights. There's nothing wrong with the United States of America supporting Israel. They are our ally. There is not a single Arab country in the world that is considered to be an ally of America. Hamas's own wording of their whole charter, we will not be happy until every Jew is gone. Gone, okay? Gone. That's a genocide. The fact that Hamas and soldiers are hiding underneath hospitals and schools, that's not Israel's problem. It used to be you had the red coats and the blue coats, and you knew who the hell you were fighting. Ever since Vietnam, we don't know who the enemy is. It's impossible not to kill civilians. It's impossible. Israel, please don't. That is really very disrespectful. I sat there quietly and listened to you folks. A friend of mine's mother once said, no matter how thin the pancake, there are always two sides. Y'all have had the opportunity now, more than 30 of you. Just please, more than 30 of you to come here for 3 minutes at a time and present your side in a meeting and
Thank you, Stephanie.
underrepresented. No, sir, I'm not.
You know what?
Hamas is
Stephanie,
genocide. I'm sitting down. Who's talking?
thank
to me? I'm
you,
sitting down
thank
right
you
now.
for,
I'm trying to
thank
see
you
who's
for,
talking.
for coming
And
out.
I am sorry that
I appreciate it.
I'm emotional about it, but right before I started to speak, there was snickering when Mr. Schottenstein was speaking. That got me upset. I did not mean to speak over my. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think the last person I have here is Wayne Genter.
Thank you. My name is Wayne Genter. I'm a resident of Hilliard. So it's the policy of the Hilliard City Council that at these public meetings, the public may speak at these regular scheduled meetings. And the intent is that they can bring opinions, concerns, or other issues. Well, since the council's areas of responsibility is to serve Hilliard, this public input is really of only value if the comments directly impact this community. If the issues are outside the governing bounds of this council, no resolutions, statements, or other actions are needed and should not be conducted. At the last meeting of council and this one, numerous speakings have addressed the conflict of the Middle East. And I must say, with an extreme bias and deception and with claims of Israel genocide in reference to the delivery of human aid. There is a proverb that says, the one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines it. In simpler words, there are two sides to every story. The first one to speak sounds true until you hear the other side and set the record straight. Facts matter. The Gaza tragedy was triggered by Hamas on October 6, 2023, with the brutal slaughter of over 1,400 Israelis, including the beheading of babies, and with over 200, including 6 Americans, taken hostage. The Hamas terrorist organization openly declared credit for this atrocity, expressed intent to repeat it again, and called for surrounding Arab nations to attack Israel. Hamas's long-stated goal has been to kill the Jews and eliminate the state of Israel. Hezbollah, operating out of Syria and Lebanon, also has these goals. Both Hamas and Hezbollah are financed by Muslim countries, particularly Iran. Additionally, Western governments have sent billions of dollars to aid Gaza citizens, but I will mention what happened to that later. A speaker may be deceived by conveniently omitting critical information. Did these speakers note that over the years, Hamas has almost daily launched missile attacks against the Israeli civilian centers, often from Gaza schools and from Gaza residential areas? Did they note that Hamas missiles and weapons armories were stored in these same areas and also in Gaza hospitals? Did they tell you how Hamas strategically and tragically uses Gaza and Syria civilians as shields? Did they tell you how Hamas siphoned off from the billions of dollars of Western aid intended for humanitarian purposes and to build Gaza infrastructure, misappropriating it for their own military purposes?
Thank you.
And just a word to counsel.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. We're going to move on to
Council
the business
President.
portion of our meeting. If you
Excuse me, Council President, we've given everyone else at least another 30 seconds or 15. I would think it would be appropriate to give this gentleman an extra 15 seconds.
This is a word to counsel I would like to make.
I'm sorry.
I've tried to stop everybody as close as I could to 30 seconds. I heard a pause, and that
Because
is
this
why-
gentleman is being respectful to you, you're going to cut him off, and whereas everybody else was disrespectful when you tried to give them the time limit, I would ask for another 15 seconds. All right, I motion for this gentleman to be given another 15 seconds. He is the last speaker. We will not have any more speakers after this.
Is there a second?
Okay, let me return to
Is there a roll call vote?
We have to
Roll call vote?
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier? Mr. Betts? Ms. Cole?
No.
President Vermillion?
No.
Vice President Catone?
No.
Mr. Teeter?
No.
If any of you would like to, at this time, leave as we enter our business portion, I'll wait for a minute for you to vacate.
Students have to stay for the business part, right? I think the students have to stay.
Yeah. Students? I did my best, Peggy. I was waiting for a pause. I did my best. We will talk later. Okay, I'm getting ready to go. Okay. All right. Okay, we are ready to move into the business portion of council. We have one second reading. Okay, are you ready? Will the clerk please read 24-06 by title only?
Amending Section 1115.02 of the zoning code of the codified ordinances of the city of Hilliard, Ohio to add health and fitness facilities as conditional use within the OHRD and OHMD zoning districts.
This is the second reading and public hearing on this ordinance. Has anyone signed up to speak on this?
No, ma'am.
All right. Would anybody else in attendance like to speak on this? Okay. Does council have any further questions? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Vermillion?
Yes.
Mr. Teeter?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Vice President Catone?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier? Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
Ordinance 24-06 has passed and will be in effect at the earliest date allowable by law. We don't have any first readings, so we'll go into our resolutions. Will the clerk please read 24-R-23 by title only?
Approving Equities LLC's application for a community entertainment district generally located along Truman Boulevard, south of Davison Road, and creating such community entertainment district.
Would a council member like to sponsor and adopt?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there a staff report?
Good evening, members of council. This legislation creates a community and entertainment district over the TruePointe development. The purpose of the CED, the Community and Entertainment District, is to open up additional liquor permits that are not subject to the quota established under Ohio Revised Code. So approval of this legislation allows for additional permits to attract restaurants and things to the development.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. What is in the, let's see, this is the form that was submitted. It says the proposed TruePointe CED includes an existing 485,291 square foot office building. What is that building?
They're including the whole complex that used to make up the Timberline development, which was the former Red Roof Inn building where Equity's headquarters is. It's all common ownership now.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Teeter?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
President Vermillion?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Vice President Catone?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
24-R-23 is passed and is in effect at the earliest date allowable by law. And Mr. Meadows, I forgot to thank you for your report. Thank you. Okay, will the clerk please read 24-R-24 by title only?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Decker Construction Company for the 2024 Sidewalk Maintenance Program, CIP T-160, authorizing the expenditure of funds and authorizing a transfer of funds.
Would a council member like to sponsor and adopt?
Second.
And Letty's here for the staff report.
Good evening, members of City Council. This is year 2 of our sidewalk program, and since we have 2 new members of City Council, I wanted to briefly go through the process of how this program works, which was started last year. So we've split the city up into 10 zones. There was a map in your packet that basically shows the 10 zones. In year one, we were somewhat budget constrained and we were not able to get through zone 1. So this year, we're completing zone 1, which is in the Avery subdivision, and then we're moving through most of zone 2. We mailed out information to the residents in November after our budget was passed, so we kind of had an idea of more funding available. In January and February, we did inspections of the sidewalks in the neighborhoods and we marked them. Then we followed up with a letter to residents again based on last year's bid prices of approximately what the cost to do the repairs would be if you use the city's contract. You would have the property owners have the option to either opt into the city's program, and if they do nothing, essentially that's what happens, or they can opt out and choose to do the repairs themselves. This year we bid out the 2024 program, and we had 4 bidders. The low bidder was Decker Construction with a base bid total of a little over $955,000. We did alternate bid some sections on Scioto Darby Road because we were concerned with our budget that we may not have funds available. And in fact, we do not have funds available to complete that work, so we're not going to award the alternate bid on that project. So what this legislation does do is authorizes an expenditure to include a total of $1,098,200. This is for the Decker construction contract plus approximately 5% contingency, as well as inspection services by Prime AE Group. And it also authorize the city manager to enter into a construction contract with Decker. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
As homeowners pay, does that free up more funds for us to be able to do more of the sidewalks?
So that factors into available funds every year when we do our capital budget. So I think this year our funding for the program was about $1 million or $1.1 million. So as years go on, depending on how the money comes in, we could, if council chooses to, increase the funding for the sidewalk program to be able to kind of stay the course and be able to, our goal is to try to do 1 zone per year, and we're fairly close, but we're not quite up there yet. So that's a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Vice President Catone?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
President Vermillion?
Yes.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Mr. Teeter?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
24-R-24 is passed and is in effect at the earliest date allowable by law. Will the clerk please read 24-R-25 by title only?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with McCrometer, I don't even know, MCCROMETER Incorporated for sanitary sewer flow monitoring services, CIP S-20, and authorizing the expenditure of funds.
Would a council member like to sponsor and adopt?
So moved.
Second. All right, and our staff,
Okay, well, can you help me with how you say?
our staff report.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of council. I haven't spoken in front of some of you before. My name is Jeff Cox. I'm in the engineering division, and I'm filling in for Clark tonight. He's not here, so the correct pronunciation is McCrometer. So close, but anyway, this resolution is to allow the city manager, of course, to enter into a contract with McCrometer Incorporated for monitoring services on our sanitary sewer system. This company originally we contracted with in 2009 under the name of HACH, H-A-C-H. So we've been doing business with them for about 14 years now. This 2-year contract allows the installation of 5 flow meters, the continued installation of 5 flow meters in our sanitary system. These flow meters generate flow data 365 days a year, 7 days a week. This information is used by our engineers that we hire to do our sewer system evaluation study, where we are looking for sources of infiltration and inflow into our sanitary system. It allows us to sort of narrow down and target where these problems are occurring. We also use this information to evaluate the capacity of our sanitary system downstream of areas of development and redevelopment interest. So the overall contract amount is for $119,200, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Thank you for your report. All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Carrier,
I just want the record to say macrometer sounds like some kind of cheeseburger. Anyway, yes.
don't make me spell it again. Mr. Teeter,
Yes.
President Vermillion,
Yes.
Ms. Cole,
Yes.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Vice President Catone,
Yes.
Mr. Betts.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
24-R-25 is passed and is in effect at the earliest date allowable by law. Will the clerk please read 24-R-26 by title only?
Confirming the intention of the City of Hilliard to join the City of Columbus as a co-plaintiff in legal action challenging Section 9.681 of the Ohio Revised Code prohibiting local administrative regulation of tobacco products and alternative nicotine products.
Would a council member like to sponsor and adopt? And our staff report.
Thank you, members of council. I also haven't met all of you. Jesse Champ here on behalf of Thad. I fill in when he's out of town or occupied elsewhere. Resolution title pretty much spells it out. Essentially, the General Assembly passed legislation last year that prohibited municipalities from adopting local administrative efforts. Last week, the City of Columbus filed a lawsuit seeking to enjoin that statute as a violation of home rule. And this resolution would just allow us to sign on to that lawsuit to sort of protect our ability, both in this space, specifically tobacco regulation, as well as perhaps future encroachments by the General Assembly upon local home rule.
Thank you for that report. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Champ?
Just want to make clear that we're not paying anything with this. We're riding on the coattails of Columbus, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and I would add to 24R26 that if we are asked to pay, that come back before the body.
Certainly.
So I would motion that's added to that resolution, that any costs come back to us for consideration.
Is there any like dollar amount, like if it's like $100 or?
I just think if Hilliard taxpayers are going to be asked to do this, I have a different vote than if I'm riding on Columbus's, because I've expressed to some of you privately that I don't know how this goes anywhere, but I'm fine as long as we're not paying anything and burning money on it. We could be putting that money into sidewalks or other good things. So that's just my opinion. I just want to make sure that that's clear on 24R26. So I would motion that any taxpayer expenditures from Hilliard come back to the body for reevaluation on that motion, on that resolution. So that's what I'm asking for. And if I can't get a second, I don't get it, but that's okay. That's where I'm at.
So, do you have the language down, or?
Any expenditure
Any expenditure,
will come back before City Council for re-review. That's simple. Does that work, Jesse? Clean it up for me.
There we go. It would work. I mean, I would note, I don't think we could seek funds for this anyway without coming back for approval, because nothing's been appropriated for this litigation.
Yeah, but we do general appropriations, your law
Sure.
account. So I want to make sure it's not coming out of there and we're not noticed of it. So that's why I want it in there.
Sure, we could amend it to add section 3 that says, should any funds be sought to further this litigation through the City of Hilliard, that this resolution will return to council for further review and approval.
Perfect. Thank you for cleaning it up.
All right, so that's what's on the table. Roll call, please.
Mr. Betts?
Just to be clear, this roll call is on the amendment, and then we'll vote on the resolution as amended.
Exactly. And that's less than Ms. Cole, correct?
Yes.
You made the motion.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Teeter?
Yes.
Vice President Catone?
Yes.
President Vermillion?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Betts? Okay, the amendment passed 7-0.
Thank you.
And now we'll do a roll call on the amended version.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Vice President Catone?
Yes.
President Vermillion?
Yes.
Mr. Carrier?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Teeter?
Yes.
Passed 7-0.
24-R-26 has passed as amended and it will be in effect at the earliest date allowable by law. That concludes our business portion of the meeting. We'll move on to President's communication. A reminder that we have moved the council meeting from April 8th to April 9th, Tuesday, because of the solar eclipse. We did this.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you.
All right.
I'd have showed up Monday.
And let's see. So a reminder about the solar eclipse. The city's having, an activity down at Hilliard Station Park, and should be awesome. A reminder to council that the council rules were emailed out to you a few weeks back, and just take time to look at those so that we can discuss those. Is that scheduled for next meeting, or?
I want to say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right. And I did ask on the, because there was a sewer-related resolution, so I asked for an update on our backflow sewer program. They have received, to date, 24 applications since this started a couple years back. Of these, 8 homeowners took full advantage of the program and have been reimbursed for the installation of a new backflow device. The majority of the other 16 didn't follow through for various reasons. They may have been ineligible or just other reasons. So that's an update there. City manager updates.
Just one, a reminder that Wednesday is State of the City at Center Street Market, begins at 5:30, and so far we have about 200 RSVPs, so good packed crowd. Good to hear.
Michelle's buying.
All right, yes. Does council have any? Emily?
Oh, yes, I do. And may I ask a question about that?
Oh, yeah.
If one of us thought they were going to be out of town and are now not out of town, can they still attend?
There's a nominal fee, but yes. You can.
I'm no longer welcome.
RSVP was not required, so
Okay.
please do.
Okay, great. I have actual item. Okay, I have one very exciting update. Councilwoman Hale and I have teamed up, so you're all on notice. And we are working together in partnership with the city, we're in the planning phases for assessing the nonprofits that operate in and serve in Hilliard. And we are working on trying to create opportunities for residents in need to connect to those resources, as well as residents who want to volunteer or give towards the end of the year towards those organizations. So we are in the planning phases, but very excited about where this could go.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for working on that. All right, I think that's, oh, yes, Dee.
I just wanted to mention that we have several vacancies that are out. Not only do we have the partial term BZA, but we are also looking for high school students for the RPAC. And I think there is a term up, or we're looking for someone for the tax review board. So those are all posted.
They're all posted, okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right, I think that's it. I would entertain a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Congratulations, Madam President. You did a great job today. That's tough. It's tough to do.